Hello and welcome to this demo video for the income and expense report spreadsheet. This is the first spreadsheet that we've done that is kind of it's a bookkeeping type of spreadsheet. Especially now with making tax digital, we've obviously HMRC have all these rules and regulations. So we've made this spreadsheet to work out BAP returns and to actually help you to submit them using a third-party software. So normally when I do one of these demo videos, I've already got things populated. Here I don't. I do have a few populations down here, but I'm really wanted to show you this from scratch. So this might take a little bit longer than the normal demos, but just do bear with me. I just want to make sure that you're 100% clear how to use this. The spreadsheet's fairly simple to use. This first sheet looks a bit complicated, but that's why I'm going to go through each thing with you. Then all you've got is you've got your different months. So you've got 12 different tabs, different months. Those will the months will depend on how you set it up in a minute. And you've got reports, you've got category reports and VAT returns. Tax returns is coming soon, and you've got your VAT file. I'll explain all of this to you in the next few minutes as we go through this demo video. So let's start with the setup and settings, because this is the most important page. What you do here will obviously have bearings throughout the entire spreadsheet, so I just want to make sure that you understand how to do this. Financial year start month. This is very simple. Which month does your financial year start? So if your financial year starts in May, for example, you can select May and it'll set up. Now if you have a look, you go through the first month, is actually May. It says 1900 because you haven't put a year in, and then June. So that's actually set up already as it should be from a month point of view. Then it says financial year financial start year. So for example, you just selected May. Which year is this? Well, this is May, say 2019. I know we haven't reached that yet as I'm doing the video, but I just want to show you because when I put dates in, it's going to be automatically 2019. So I don't want to mess about with 2018. So you select the year, and now when you come back here, you can see it's got 1st of May 2019. So it's broken your months down, it's got them in order, and that's all set up to go. So you've told it basically which month and year you're starting on. Are you VAT registered? If you select no, it'll ignore VAT. As you can see, those disappear. You don't have to worry about putting anything to do with that. You can still, you'll need to remove the ticks from here. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But let's just say, for argument's sake, you are VAT registered, because that's possibly why you're getting this, because you want to be compliant for making tax digital. Which scheme are you on, the normal or the flat rate? You're on the normal one. And then when is the start of your first VAT quarter? Now your VAT quarters may not necessarily run concurrently with your financial year. So you might start your first financial year in May, but your first quarter might start in June, whenever it might be. So let's just say, it really doesn't matter. Let's just say, when does your first one start? Let's say your first VAT quarter. When it says start the first VAT quarter to this financial year. So let's just say you say 1st of June. Now it knows when your VAT quarter starts, and it can prepare accordingly. It's your business name that will already be locked into the spreadsheet. Here are the VAT rates. So it will say 1st of March is starting, and there's no end date there. All you need to do, okay, that was already in there. All you would need to do is come in and put in 20%. Why are there 5 different options? Well, that is really, if the government then changes VAT halfway through the year, you can put the new year with the new date when the new VAT rate starts and put the new VAT rate in. Many times people will have just one place for you to put in the VAT rate, but then you put in the VAT rate, and then what happens is that VAT rate will go throughout the year. And then if the VAT rate changes halfway through the year, you've got no way of telling it. So here, if you can put in up to 5, 9 times out of 10, you're just going to keep the one that's going to stay exactly the same throughout the year. But if it does change, you can put the new date when it changes. And then these tabs at the bottom here will have a look and see, look at this table and see, okay, which VAT rate do I use when? And then if you do change the VAT rate, only the entries from that particular date will have the new VAT rate. Bank balance, VAT balance, and income tax balance. What this is at the beginning of the financial year, what is your bank balance? Now, if you use the spreadsheet for a year, a lot of these cells, like these ones here, if you scroll down to the bottom, will actually export from the previous one. So you can just copy and paste these values across. But when you're doing your first one, you need to put in your starting bank balance. So whatever your starting bank balance is at the beginning of the year. Your VAT balance, what the VAT balance means is if you take out money, if you take out money every time you get an income, you take out the VAT, and every time you pay an expense that you can claim back the VAT, you you pay the VAT back to yourself. What is that balance at the start of this month? Now, again, as I said, it will show up from your previous spreadsheet if you've been using this before. But really, if you put money from your account into a savings account, every time you get paid an invoice, and then every time you pay out money that's VAT, that you can claim back the VAT, you take the money back out of the savings account. What would the balance of that savings account be at the beginning of this financial year? So how much money are you currently owing in VAT really is the bottom line, and that's what would be in there. And it would be the same for the income tax. Now, the income tax, I'll show you in a minute, is not 100% accurate. The reason being is because it's just an estimate based on a percentage. It doesn't take all the criteria into account, but obviously the VAT is accurate because that's easy to calculate. All right, let's scroll down and have a look here. Again, if you've got VAT import from last year, for last financial year, now they're 2 months, which means that if, for example, your first month, you're starting a new tax month on the very first month of this financial year, then you won't be carrying over any. But because we've said that it starts on the 1st of June, that means that the previous tax rate would have been May, March, April, and then February, March, April, and May would have been the previous tax, and this one starting on May, which means we would have March and April being carried over. So here you'd have your sales. Let's just put in some random figures. Let's just say there are £3,000 sales, £3,000 sales, and 500 expenses. 500 expenses equals that times 20%. That's 600. So we put the 600, and that one equals that times 20%. 100 expenses for that. So that is what we will be carrying over from the previous 2 months. The start of the 1st of June, so we got January, February, March, April, and May. We're going to collect May as we go along in this spreadsheet, but March and April have been brought forward. So those are the values imported. Now, obviously, if you might struggle to work that up, but if you're starting from scratch, next time you'll have those figures in the spreadsheet at the bottom. So these green cells are the ones that need to be copied over. So you can, there's the details for your bank balance and VAT balance. Here's the details for your VAT export next financial year. So if you finish one of these as a financial year and you start a new one the next financial year, then you can just copy and paste those values across, and you don't have to work them out. Why does the spreadsheet only last for 1 year? Well, it's very simple. You don't want to have numerous tabs at the bottom here. This is all set up for one financial year. So if you keep a blank copy of the spreadsheet, the next financial year you set one up for the new year, and you can copy the closing balances across as opening balances. You can put your VAT number in here. You can put your VAT number in there. Why do we need a VAT number? Well, obviously, you know why you need a VAT number. It doesn't necessarily go anywhere. It's just for the spreadsheet. But you can put your VAT number in that space over there. All right. This is where you break down your categories. Now, you've got sales income, and then you've got all your income and expense categories down the side here. Now, when I say income and expense, what I mean, for example, is things like bank charges, interest could be an income and an expense. It's one category, but you put bank charges as an expense, and the interest as an income. Things like there was another one I had here. Directors' deposits. Directors' deposits are directors paying into the account. That's what I've named it. Director. If I pay money into the business account, with the business repays the loan. Because obviously sometimes the business doesn't always have enough money to work each month, and I pay some money in. So that director's deposit is really just keeping track of that money that is owing to me. And then you've got your income tax payment refund and VAT payments refunds. This section's coming soon. That's for the income tax. That's not working yet. As HMRC decide what they want, we'll update that. So ignore that for now. As well as that, this is, well, no, this can be used. This is just the income tax rate. So if we put in 20%, what that means, I'll come back to the categories in a minute. what this means is that's 20% income tax. So all it does is it just checks, it just runs at 20%. So it'll give you an estimate figure based on that percentage. But obviously, once your accountant gets hold of your books, that value could well change. Choose your loan entry. What this means is the spreadsheet will keep track of a loan, i.e. how much money does the business owe me, how much money do I owe the business, but it's asking you what your entry is. So what I've used is I've used the director's deposits as mine. So if I come here and select director's deposits, it's going to track that as my loan. And what is my loan opening balance? If I put in an amount of £5,000, say, what that means is how much money does the business currently owe me as the director. So that's the outstanding balance of the loan as far as the business is concerned. That's really the setup. The only thing I left to do that I didn't touch on were these categories and why they ticks. So you can break these down into categories. Don't list any category twice, obviously. You can put the category names you've got up from A to Z, the category names that you want to put in there. Leave these ones at the bottom. Those ones are fine. You can change the name of them, but essentially the first one is your tax, income tax payment refund, and the second one is your VAT refund. You can change the names if you want to call them something different, but make sure that is the one for your VAT and that's the one for your tax. You've got your salary, sales income, which is start, and then you've ticked it off for VAT and ticked off income tax. That means that yes, VAT will apply and yes, income tax will apply. And then all you do is you check each one down as you go along. Does VAT apply? Does income tax apply? So for argument's sake, bank charges, that doesn't apply. Director's deposit, that doesn't apply. Normally, entertainment, I've selected as no, but if you say, well, actually, yes, it will, that will apply. It doesn't really matter. This isn't going to include or exclude VAT on all those categories. What this is going to do is this is going to remind you when you put that in. So for argument's sake, if fuel never has VAT, just leave it unchecked because it's never going to remind you about fuel. It's always going to take it as well. It doesn't have VAT. If it may have VAT sometimes and other times doesn't, make sure you check it. The only time you want to leave it unchecked is if it never has VAT. So for argument's sake, travel cards will never have VAT. Software and accessories may have VAT, it may not. Dividend payments never has a thing on income tax. Well, in fact, you need to decide. This is why you need to decide whether it does or doesn't. If you're unsure, check it. If you're sure that it doesn't have anything to do with it, then don't bother about checking it. So if dividends doesn't have anything on income tax, you can leave it unchecked. But if you're not sure, check it. The reason why you do that will become obvious when we move on to these other tabs. But if essentially you can put in categories because you can categorize each of your invoices. So put the category names in, and if you think it's ever going to occur VAT or is ever going to have some kind of that's going to your VAT amount is going to depend on that selection, then check yes. Otherwise, if you never wanted to remind you, check no. But even if you check no, if you leave it blank, or if you check yes, it does occur VAT or income tax, you can still override each individual entry. So this is just to warn you of those particular things as you get to each entry. So once that page is set up, you're basically good to go. These red tabs you can use each month. This is what you did at the beginning of the month to set this up. The red tabs you can use each month. The green tabs will update as you go along, and these gray tabs are here for the third party making tax digital software. So that's the first part of the video, setting up this. The next part we'll get into in a minute is taking a look at all of these different tabs at the bottom and what they do. All right, so here, without further ado, let's move on to have a look at the second part of this video. There is the first month. As we can see, it's May 2019 because our setup, we've got an opening balance, difference, all the rest of it. Now, we can then put in the dates when the transaction happens, select a category, put in the description, invoice number, receipt number, debit and credit. So what are important columns? The important columns is the date, obviously. The other important column is selecting the correct category, debit and credit amounts, and then the VAT. So how does this work? 1st of May, you see they immediately go yellow, asking you for what you need to put in. If you say that they're bank charges or interest, now you can type in here interest from your bank account. So you've got a savings account or whatever the case might be, and you've been given £1 in interest. So that will update. So you've completed all the yellow. Now, say on the 5th of May, you get a sales, get some sales income, and you can put here invoice number 123, whatever it might be. So now it could be a credit note, so that's why the debits come up, but it's a credit. So let's say you've been paid £2,000. Now you can see the VAT is yellow because it's asking you, but what about the VAT? The reason why that's gone yellow and that one didn't was because we ticked the sales income, that does occur VAT. So now what that does is it asks us, what about VAT? So 9 times out of 10 we'll be selecting yes, the VAT there is VAT on that. On the odds, well, let's move on and show. So what that does is not only does it calculate the balance, but it also shows you the ex-VAT value. It shows you the VAT value. It shows you the income tax value that's been set aside for that. It shows you that's why the income tax value obviously isn't necessarily accurate, because it's just taking the figures on each of these amounts. Now, as you spend money, it'll take that off, but we all know that there's all sorts of rebates and all sorts of things involved, and the spreadsheet doesn't take that into account. So this value that you've, at any stage of the game, if you have a look at your VAT value, that's the amount of money you should have set aside for your, here, the running totals, the VAT value, that's the money you should have set aside for your VAT. And in theory, that's the maximum you should have set aside for income tax. You put the correct percentage in, it's never going to go above that, but you need to obviously just monitor those figures. The VAT one should be quite accurate because it's taking all your VAT expenses and income into consideration. The income tax, as I said, won't be, it's just guidelines, but those just keep running totals as you go along. So let's just say on the 8th of May, you did some marketing, advertising, you went to a networking event, and that cost you £100. Now, because advertising marketing, it says, is that VAT? So if you've paid VAT on that, then you can go here and tick yes, because you're going to claim back that VAT. If you didn't pay VAT on that amount and you don't want to, and you can't claim back VAT, then you just check no, and it leaves it at blank. So this will be a running total to obviously work out your VAT return, so you can select on each one yes or no. So if you ticked it on your settings that it must ask you for VAT, it will do, and then you can say yes as per normal, or no, that one didn't. That one's up to you. So you can obviously go on a granular level to each and every entry as to whether it's whether it must be included in your VAT return or not. Even if you come in, say on the 10th of May and select something, let's go and have a look at something we said shouldn't. Donations, for example. So if you make a donation and you select donations, 200, it won't come up yellow because you said that never occurs VAT. But let's just say, for argument's sake, in some unique, obscure way it does, you can still actually come and override it and go, yes, that one does. So that setup that you've done only really just flags up whether you need to put it or not. The ones that are important here obviously are your income tax, because your income tax ones on your setup page, this will just include or exclude income tax per category, because usually your categories are, from an income tax point of view, are much clearer. But from a VAT point of view, they're not necessarily clear, because a category may usually have VAT, but you might buy from some vendor who's not VAT registered, or anything could happen there. So the VAT ones will warn you the income tax are hard and fast, that they'll take those categories or they won't include those categories. But as you said, your income tax is merely just an indication. So you can go along, fill these in, all the different months, May, June, July, August, September, they're all in the order that you've got. If you pay a VAT, if you go scroll on your sales incomes, obviously at the top there, all those different categories that you've filled in. Your income tax payment refund and VAT payment refund. So if you pay VAT, where you pay your VAT back to HMRC, you'd select that, because then what that does is it doesn't include the VAT from that figure, but what it does is it'll take that entire figure off of your running total, so that you've got the correct running total in place. So you need to select the right one when you're making a VAT payment. The only other thing that I can think to say on this is that if you select any of these items, so for argument's sake, if you select bank charges interest, when you put in a credit, it's taken as interest. If you were to come back here and go bank charges, say on the 12th of May, and say that these were actually bank charges, not interest, then all you do is you just put it in on the debit amount rather than the credit, and that will differentiate the two. What you type in here, this doesn't go anywhere other than on the spreadsheet for your purposes, the description and invoice receipt number. What's important from the spreadsheet point of view is the date, the category, and whether it's a debit or a credit, and then obviously the VAT column as well. So you can do that throughout all these months as you go along. It will try and take balances carried across. So as we go into June, you can see the current balance comes across, and you can continue from June all the way through. As you have a look on the report, you'll see a report. Okay, obviously we've only done 1 month here so far, but you'll see this report will spring to life. Your VAT return values will spring to life. Your incoming and outgoing will spring into life, so you can see, with each month incoming and outgoing as far as finance are concerned. So the green mountain is bigger than the red one, you're doing well. Opening and closing bank balances. You can see the loan activity as well. I'll show you what that means. So in other words, if we come back to this one and we say on the 15th of May, we pay back some of the loans. So we go director's deposit. Yes, it says deposit, but remember what we said, debit or credit. If you put in a credit, what that means is that I, as a director, am paying money into the business. If you put in a debit, that means the business is paying me back some money. So if the business pays me back, say £500, you can put repayment to director as an indication to yourself. Now, when we go back to the reports, we'll see that actually the loan activity, we're paying back some money paid back £500. So you'll see how this graph changes as you fill in more and more information. But there's your general annual report. You can then come to your category report as well. You can select which one you'd like to see. So say sales income, or say bank charges interest, for example. You can see credits per month, debits per month. So your balance is in gray per month. You can come here, you can see your sales income per month, including VAT. If you want to see them excluding, you just come up to the top here and select excluding VAT, and it will change the values. Then you can see your annual figures per category, incoming, outgoing, balance, that's over the year. You can see a breakdown of all of your income and outgoing, breakdown as to what categories they fall into on that graph. If you scroll down, you can see income breakdown per category per month, including VAT, outgoing breakdown per category per month, and then the difference, i.e. the balance between the two per month. So you can go to any month you want, fuel, August, and you can see exactly what's going on those categories. If you want to see all the values exclusive, you just change that to excluding VAT, and you can obviously select which category you want to view in more detail. So that's the category report. The VAT returns, straightforward enough. It will work out your VAT return per quarter. Those of you who have done VAT returns online will recognize those blocks and those categories. So all you do here is you can put your VAT login number over there as well, just so you remember it, because I keep forgetting mine. That all comes from your settings page. So these blocks will automatically populate. So when you get to the time when you need to be doing a VAT return, this is the first quarter you want to come, and when you get to the point of wanting the VAT return, put in the date when you do the VAT return. But in order to do the VAT return, now with Making Tax Digital, you need to communicate directly with HMRC. Just select the quarter you want to do, check these figures, and then if you click on that file, you'll see that's already set up with those figures in the correct boxes. Make sure that they're correct. Please, please, please make sure these are correct. You can't just accept what the spreadsheet tells you. You've got to make sure these are correct. Double check, because you ultimately are responsible for these figures that you send to HMRC, not the software, not the spreadsheet, no one else but you. So check that you're happy with these figures. And then you can click on this link to take take yourself to the Making Tax Digital page in our spreadsheet. We will show you the third-party software that we've got available, and you can use that with your account that you set up with them in order to upload the spreadsheet directly to HMRC. And this is set up to work with that third-party software. When you come to the second VAT return, you can put in the date when you do the VAT return here, just to make sure you got that in. And then you can just change that to the second return, and when you go to the VAT file, it'll pull up the figures for the second quarter. So make sure that you've selected the right quarter to go through. When you go to your VAT file, make sure that this is all, that these figures on your VAT file one are correct. Because even if you've got these figures correct and you haven't selected the right quarter, you might have problems. So when you come to your VAT file, make sure these figures are correct. And then when you submit, those are the figures that will actually submit to HMRC. Okay, well, thank you for taking a look at that demo video. What we would suggest is obviously if you haven't used it before, download the free trial, put in some figures, make the selections. You can use it fully. The only thing is you've obviously got limited space per month for transactions. But put some figures and see if it's doing what you expect it to do. Use it a few times, get yourself used to it, see exactly what all the different settings do, how it works, see if it's showing you what you're expecting to see. We've tried to keep it as transparent as possible to show you all the figures so you know exactly what's going on, and it's simple to use. But obviously we want you to be completely comfortable with using this and make sure you understand it. If you are thinking of purchasing this, or if you purchase this product and there's something that you don't understand and you want clarification, please give us a call, drop us an email. We'll be happy to help you and answer any questions you may have regarding this. We just want to make sure that it's clear and that the figures it's giving are accurate and that everyone knows how to use it. So take a look at the free trial, and as I said, if you are using this and something's not clear in this video, please do get in touch. We'll be more than happy to help you. Thank you and all the best. Bye-bye.